What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Do you guys want to catch giant bass? Today's video, I'm covering it all. Springtime fishing and how to target the biggest bass in your lake. I'm covering swim baits, glide baits, reaction baits, everything in between to help you guys stick the biggest fish in your lake. Let's go. You don't always have to throw big 12-inch baits to catch giant fish, but sometimes it helps. You know, people ask us all the time, how do you target 10-pound bass? How do you target the biggest bass in your fishery? Today, I'm gonna cover it all, and honestly, the first thing it starts with, the number one thing, is mindset. You gotta go to the lake, go to the pond, wherever you're fishing, with the correct mindset. Otherwise, you've already lost before you've started. You know, to get in the habit to throw a big swim bait or a big bait in general takes dedication and it takes confidence. And I see a lot of guys that head to the lake and they're determined. They're gonna throw the big swim baits, you know, and it's all relative. You know, a big swim bait in your body of water could be a 6-inch or it could be a 12-inch. It's totally relative to your fishery, the bait fish that are in it, and the pressure and the guys that are throwing other baits. You know, are they throwing 6-inch baits? Are they throwing 12-inch baits, 10-inch baits? That's totally depends on the fishery you're fishing. But whatever big bait you're throwing or you're committing to, go to the lake with confidence. Now, it's hard to do. It's hard to build confidence. And the number one reason I feel that people get away from it is they bring their other confidence baits with them. You know, you hit up the lake and you're determined. You're gonna go throw a 10-inch Savage Gear swim bait. You're gonna stick a giant. Well, 12 casts into it and a backlash, you've picked up your drop shot rod and now you're finesse fishing. So next time you go to the lake, you're not gonna have confidence in this bait because you've already tried it and it didn't work, and it just... My number one suggestion for those of you guys getting into the big baits, you wanna catch that big bass, you wanna throw the big baits, leave your other confidence baits at home. That way you are stuck out on the water and you have to throw whatever big bait you decided to bring that day, whatever bait you want to get confidence in, you have to throw that. You know, too often we put down those big baits that we want to be committed to and we pick up those confidence baits and we downsize, we get back to using what we're already confident in, and it's all out the window. Now, you can still catch giant fish doing that, but you've lost that mindset. So again, mindset and confidence is your number one thing to being successful with big baits. Now, you don't necessarily have to throw big baits this time of the year to catch giant bass, and I'm gonna cover all that. I'm gonna cover, I got my rods laid out today, what I personally bring out onto the lake when I wanna stick a giant. And it is completely different than if I wanna catch a lot of fish. So 2 different strategies, and I'm gonna cover it all. But I wanted to start off getting you guys in the right mindset. You know, some of you guys, you already are confident swim bait fishermen. You already are confident glide bait fishermen. So you know that when you head to the lake, you're picking up that 8, 10, 6-inch glide, whatever it may be, and you are throwing that bait every cast. You just know on the next reel twitch, you're gonna get bit. And that's what it takes to stay confident and catch these big girls this time of the year. So we've talked about mindset. The next thing I want to talk about is timing. And timing, I feel this time of the year is very, very, very important. And I'm going to kind of lump weather into timing just because it's relative, right? If you can go out and fish any day of the week, you don't want to go out post-frontal conditions, right? But if you're a guy that has a 9-to-5 job, like most of us, and we only get out on certain days off, go fishing when you can. But timing, if you have timing on your side. If you have the days off or the schedule, pick those days where one, it's not post-frontal. You want to be prefrontal, or after the front comes through, 2 or 3 warm, sunny days after the fact is you're going to be your best bet. So that's a little tidbit on weather, but more importantly, timing. We all have our favorite spots on the lake, right? We all have our confidence spots. And you're going to hear confidence a lot today because that is a must. We all have our confidence spots, you know, our favorite point, our favorite hump, rock pile, our favorite dock, whatever that may be, whatever your favorite spot is, where you've caught big fish before or you've seen big fish before, try going there different times of the day. And the reason I say that, you know, today, right now, it's about, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock. Got the high sun. It is starting to get warm. You know, I had a hoodie on this morning. Now I'm just in a sun shirt. The fish feel that. So if you just run to your #1 spot right off the bat when there's still ice on your boat or ice on your kayak or ice on your car, wherever you're driving to, and you go and you fish that #1 spot first thing in the morning and you don't get bit, don't be afraid to try that different times throughout the day, because as that sun gets up, that water gets warm, those fish move up. And guess what? You want to be the first person presenting that 10-pound largemouth a bait. You don't want to be the second, third, fourth guy. You want to be there and present that bait to those fresh fish that have just moved up. They're pre-spawn, they are hungry, and they are wanting to kill and eat. That is when you can put all that together and you have the right location, the right timing, the right weather, the confidence to throw these baits, that is when magic happens. So timing, don't be afraid. If your #1 spot or 2 spot or whatever spot it is, if it doesn't work first thing in the morning or it doesn't work last light, try it throughout the day, different times, because those fish are gonna move up and out and in and out and down. They're gonna move all over. This is that transition period. Pre-spawn, springtime, those fish are moving. You know, we've covered it in other videos. You guys kind of know where they're going. Matt's done a great job talking about where do fish go. Get on Google Earth, get on Lake Master Chip, get on Navionics, whatever app or chip you run, do some research on your bodies of water, find those key spots that Matt's talked about in other videos. If you guys haven't watched that, I'll link that up here, where fish go in the springtime, that spring transition. But if you pick those spots, you spend time, figure out those spots when you're off the water, go and fish those different times of the day, and you will be surprised what lives there. So we've talked about timing. I kind of breezed over it just a little bit ago, but location. Like I said, Matt's talked about where these fish are going, where they've been, and where they're gonna stage, you know, secondary points as they move into the backs of spawning bays, that sort of stuff. So if you have your location, your timing down, and a right mentality, that is where you need to start. Everything else falls into place. When you have those 3 keys right there, most importantly the mindset, that is when picking up any of these baits will work. So now that I've covered that, let's talk about the actual baits themselves. And the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what kind of fishery do you live on? It's starting to get hot out here in the sun. Do you live on a lake, or do you fish on a lake where guys are throwing this on a regular basis? Or do you live on a lake where guys are just primarily finesse fishing and you're gonna be the first guy to present this type of bait? Totally depends on where you're fishing, but it matters, because I break these baits this time of the year, well, most time of the year, into 2 categories. The realistic category, this is the category where you're gonna trick that big fish into eating and you're gonna get bit on natural looking stuff. Or the reaction category. Has that fish seen this bait 1,000 casts, and now you have to do something different to trigger that big fish to eat? You know, these big fish don't get big by being stupid. And believe it or not, every time they're caught, they learn. They know they've been caught by an 8-inch Hud 1, 2, 3 times. Guess what? They're gonna stop eating 8-inch baits because it stung them before and they learn. So figure out if you are fishing a trick 'em lake or a reaction lake, trigger lake. Hope that makes sense. But that's kind of what I break these baits down into, and that applies to lipless cranks, A-rigs, slow swim baits, you know, trash fish. They all fall in one of the 2 categories. So figure that out, and that's where we will start. Now, you don't always have to go out and throw a 12-inch soft bait, but let me tell you something. When you start hucking a big 12-inch piece of plastic around your favorite spots, you're gonna find out real quick what lives there. You know, I've caught 2-pounders on this bait. Bass do not care. They will smash this thing, they'll try and eat it, but more importantly, you're gonna find out the quality and the size of fish that live in your body of water. You know, when you throw this out to a point and you see 2 or 3 subs just come out and just track it, bingo. They didn't eat it, but you now know where they live and you know they're there. Again, you're adding to that confidence. The next time you pull up to that spot and you throw out an 8-inch bait, which they will eat better than this sometimes, you have confidence because you've seen it, you know they're there. Now every handle turn, you're picturing in your mind that tick or that bite, and it just adds confidence. And again, that is key. So we talked about the types of baits. Now I'm going to talk about the actual types of baits, because I have A-rigs, lipless cranks, jerk bait, glide bait, smaller glide bait, finesse bait. That is my lineup this time of the year, and they all have their purposes. So since I got them out, let's talk about the big soft baits right now. This is a 12-inch line through osprey, and again, this thing is money. You run it through your belly. You can actually run a stinger hook up here by the tail. When you get short strikes, those fish get that rear trailer hook, and you put them in the boat. Again, it's a giant bait. Fish eat it. Caught lots of fish on this bait. I mean, it's missing. I mean, I've got teeth marks all through this thing. But even if they're not eating it, they are showing you where they live. The next bait that I really want to talk to you guys about, or at least mention to you guys, is this guy right here. This is the 4D, the Savage Gear 4D swim bait. Now, again, it depends on your fishery, what quality of fish you're fishing for, but these baits are awesome. They have a real good wobble, a real good kick, and they have realistic paint jobs. I'm very, very happy with these because you know what? A lot of fish throughout the years have seen this 8-inch Huddleston. This is a staple in our arsenal. But like I said before, those big fish, you're targeting those big fish. You're trying to get those ones that have been around for several years. They know a thing or two. They've been around the block. They've got popped on this. Switch it up and try one of these guys. This is actually the 10-inch. They make an 8-inch. This is the 6-inch, and they all swim awesome. 2 other baits I want to talk about real quick in that soft bait category are going to be these guys right here. First one is the 6-inch tournament talon. You guys that are beginner soft bait swim bait fishermen and you really want to build that confidence, start off with a 6-inch bait. You're going to have more success and you're going to build that confidence to work your way up into the 8, the 10, the 12-inch baits. But the 6-inch tournament talon, probably my favorite beginner soft bait. This bait skips very well, so if you're fishing docks or you're fishing around cover, you can get that bait back there and you just reel it. You don't have to do anything else besides that. This boot tail back there just kicks. It's real aggressive. As the water temp warms up, the air warms up, the fish get more aggressive and they really key in on that boot tail style swim bait. So the osprey is an awesome, awesome bait. Now, if you're fishing around or fishing target structure like rock piles, stockpilings, something where you want to fish a little bit slower, but you're still trying to trigger those, or not trigger, still trying to trick those big fish. Again, we're talking natural. We're going with this is the All-American, the trash fish. And again, we've done several videos on these baits before, but that is a money bait right there, the trash fish. You fish it just like a Texas rig or a jig, fire it out there, and you just fish it on the bottom and just creep this thing. All these light fins, real floppy, lots of secondary action. That is a must-have. Again, we're talking about tricking these fish into eating. They see that, they see this bait, and they're like, oh, that's a trout, I'm gonna eat it. You're not really having to trigger them. They haven't seen a lot of these baits. Now let's switch gears into the triggering baits. Now this is my favorite category, just because it really dives deep into the mental wiring of a bass and just the predatory instincts that they have. When you throw a bait past them and they're like, yeah, I've seen that before, and you add a twitch that they haven't seen, or you do something with a bait that they haven't seen, something snaps and they pound it. Even if they don't want to eat it, even if they're not in a feeding mood, or even if the weather isn't right or everything isn't lined up, the triggering baits tap into that hard wire and you can make them eat even when they don't want to. And a glide bait is probably my #1 favorite bait to do that with. It is phenomenal. So the #1 bait is you guys getting into glide baits, you guys wanting to target these giant fish. The #1 bait that I can recommend for you is this guy right here, S-Waver 168. Not a very big bait, but it catches giants. 9, 10-pound spotted bass, 6, 7-pound smallmouth, and 10, 12, 14-pound largemouth. It gets it done. You don't have to throw the big baits. You know, you don't have to throw the giant baits, but guess what? They eat this. And you guys, you beginner fishermen that really want to target those big fish in your body of water, doesn't matter if you're in the Midwest or the South or up in Clearwater reservoirs in Northern California, this is a must-have bait. And you guys out here on the West Coast know it, but you know, we get stories all the time about guys back east and down south in the Midwest sticking their PBs and personal best bags on the S-Waver 168. It's a bait that you can just throw out there and reel it, and every 5 or 6 handle turns, give it a twitch, and that triggers that bass that's just following it, saying, that's stupid, it looks like a banana, what is that? And all of a sudden it darts left and darts right, bam, hardwired, they eat it. It just works. So you guys getting into glide baits, start here. It's pretty inexpensive compared to a lot of other baits on the market, and that bait right there, the light trout, is a must-have to any bass fisherman, no matter where you are fishing in the country. So I don't think I've talked about it yet, but one of the benefits, I might have talked about it with that 12-inch Osprey, but the benefit of throwing a larger bait, the main reason is drawing power. When you're fishing a 6-inch bait over a flat, you know, fish will come a little ways to eat it. But when you start upsizing your baits, when you start throwing bigger baits in a fish's area, the drawing power, the actual area that you're fishing, expands. So a fish will come a lot longer way to look at this, to see what it is and potentially eat it, than they will with a smaller bait. So that is the benefit to upsizing your bait. So you're actually fishing a larger area. So if you're fishing a bay, you're gonna see what's in that bay with less casts with this guy right here versus a smaller bait. Hopefully that makes sense. But the other benefit of throwing a larger bait is you limit the amount of small fish that you catch. Now, what I mean by that, I can go out and throw this all day and I will catch 2-pounders, I'll catch 1-pounders, I'll catch 3-pounders on it. But that is not the purpose of me throwing this. This is not the purpose of today's video. Targeting the largest fish, how to catch the largest fish in your body of water, you want to eliminate or limit the amount of small fish that you're interacting with to get to those larger fish, to get to those giants. Because you know, those little young bass, the smaller 2-pounders, 3-pounders that are, you know, full of energy and racing around, they're gonna want to get to this bait quickly. The bigger it is, it limits that and allows those slower, lazy, big fish, because they don't get big by just running and chasing down everything they see all over the place. They look for ambush points. They find the best pieces of cover, and they're lazy and they sit there and wait for something stupid, a stupid meal to come by and get it. So you eliminate the interactions with the smaller fish so you can present to more larger fish. Hopefully that makes sense. This bait right here, it's newer to the market the last couple years. This is actually the Bait Sanity. And for the money, I think it's like 60 bucks. It allows you to get into that big bait, that glide bait game, relatively inexpensive compared to what's out there. You know, you could spend several hundreds of dollars on glide baits of this size, but this bait swims very well, and this is a phenomenal bait. They got some new colors that are really cool, and you guys should definitely check these out because this thing swims awesome. Now, we're not talking about like how to fish these today, because we've done several videos on a lot of these techniques in the past, and we're just talking about the baits that you should bring out, or the baits you should think about trying this time of the year to really target those big fish. So we talked about the small swim baits, we talked about the glide baits. The next baits I got tied on today, again, I'm fishing today, so these are the baits that I'm gonna be throwing. The Alabama rig. You know, this is a rig that, or this is a bait that, you know, can be controversial, but it works. You know, when you throw some teaser baits on there and you pair that up with some Matt Allen swim bait heads with your favorite small swim bait, and you mimic that school of bait fish coming through that area, that is awesome. The A-rig, if you can fish it, you know, check your regulations in your state, wherever you're fishing. If you can fish an Alabama rig, definitely look into it, because some of my biggest bags ever have been on the Alabama rig, and it is so much fun fish. It's, you know, it's not a bait you just fire out there and reel back, although you can. You know, you put some rod twitches in there, some reel twitches, you get that school acting alive, and you will catch some of the biggest fish in your fishery. Kind of breeze through the A-rig because we've talked about it a lot. Lipless crankbait, same thing. You know, these baits, these fish, when they're moving up this time of the year. They're moving up to where they're gonna spawn. They're moving up to the bays, the creek channels, shallower rock piles. A lipless crankbait. You know, we just did an in-depth lipless crankbait video, but a lipless crankbait is something that you can switch to when they're not wanting to commit to the swim bait, but you know where they're sitting. You know what ambush spot they're sitting on. You know what little funnel or choke point they're staged on, but they won't commit to the big swim baits. Pick up the lipless crank, fire it out there, let it hit bottom, and just slowly lift that rod tip. You know, we've talked about how to fish this before, but you will be surprised at the size of fish that'll commit to a lipless crankbait. So much fun to fish, and lots and lots and lots of big fish, especially on the lipless crank. So one thing I want to talk about that I didn't get to talk about in location, I just mentioned it when I was talking about this, is choke points and location. Choke points, funnels, and I want you guys to, you know, getting back to that mentality thing, kind of combining mentality and location. When you are targeting these big fish, these giant fish, the biggest fish in your lake, come to the lake with a hunting mentality. almost like you're hunting these fish. And when you get to your spot, ease into your spot, come off a long ways, come off your trolling, your big motor a long ways away from where you want to fish. Put that trolling motor in the water slowly. Just like picturing deer hunting or walking through the forest or up in the tree stand or whatever, you want to be quiet. You want to be as natural as possible around the area that you're fishing or hunting. You know, these fish are the biggest fish in the lake. They're the biggest fish on the spot you're fishing, and they know what is around them. They know when you pull up to a spot and you throw a big swim bait out and it slaps the water, now all of the birds stop chirping in the trees. You know, all those little details, pay attention to, key in on. But if I can emphasize, be quiet. Drop your trolling motor quietly. Don't slam the rod, you know, your rod locker lids shut. You know, don't talk very loud, or if at all, you know, be as quiet as possible. If you need to and you know where you're fishing, turn off your sonar. Turn off that pinging so that slapping isn't constantly hitting the bottom. You know, everything you can do to make it seem like you're not there at all, the better success you will have. But choke points, locations, again, look at it like hunting. You know, look at a Thule point where it funnels down to a creek channel. Look at stuff like that where it's gonna funnel those fish. You get a higher concentration of fish in that location, will help you pick out the best locations on your body of water. Kind of skipped over that earlier when I talked about locations, but definitely look at it like that. Look for key ambush areas where fish can move up out of the deep, get up and feed really quickly, and then back off, you know, where they have quick access to deep water. These big fish don't like to necessarily be up shallow very often. So if you can find a spot where they can move up shallow, feed, spawn, do their thing, back out off onto deep water, that is where you're gonna find some of the biggest fish in your lake. Real quickly before I end this video so I can go fishing, 2 other baits that I want to talk about. They're gonna be the reactive baits. A crankbait, either a deep diver or a square bill, depending on the depth of water you're fishing and the way your lake lays out. Obviously, our crankbait works phenomenally this time of the year. One key that I love fishing a bluegill pattern this time of the year. So our bait in bluegill, you know, as the fish move up, those largemouth move up, so do the bluegill, the crappie, your bait fish. But here on Clear Lake, the fish really like to key in on baby crappie and baby bluegill. So one little tip for you, put away the shad style, shad colors, and try a bluegill or a crappie pattern, and you might be amazed with the differences or the size of fish that you're gonna catch. You know, any small bass can eat a little 2-inch shad or silverside, whatever type of bait fish it may be. But when you start getting those bigger bluegills, those taller bluegills, it takes a bigger largemouth, bigger spot, smallmouth to eat those, and you just upsize the fish that you're catching. One sleeper, again, I'm just going through the rods on my deck today. People always ask what I fish in the spring, what Matt fishes in the spring, and his boat would probably be almost identical to this, is a jerkbait. You know, when those fish, this is a Vision 110, some of the best jerkbaits on the market, absolutely unbelievable. X-Pride 610 medium that's paired up with a Metanium. Just like every video, I will link all of these baits I'm talking about, some colors, rods and reels, line, all of that stuff, because when you really are targeting the biggest fish, you want to upsize your hooks, upsize your line, have the right gear. So I will link all that down in the video description for you guys. Now, one last bait that I want to talk, or one last technique that, you know, we went all the way up to giant swim baits. Now I'm going to bring it back down for you. Now it doesn't matter what type, got stuff everywhere. It doesn't matter what style of finesse fishing you're doing, but don't be a sleeper on actually finesse fishing. You know, when you head out to the lake and you see the biggest fish of your life, 10, 12, 8, 6, whatever it may be, and it doesn't commit, it has shown you where it lives, it's shown you where it's at least gonna be for a little while, don't be afraid to go finesse on them, go ultra light line on them. Again, these fish are smart, they've seen a lot of baits, and this time of the year, if you can pick up a finesse bait, they've shown you where they live, they won't commit on anything reactive or the big subtle swim baits, pick up a drop shot, pick up a Nico rig, pick up something like that that you can just soak in their face. Again, they're lazy, they're looking for an easy meal, but try a morning dawn color. I've caught more big fish and seen more big fish caught on the morning dawn color in the early spring to spring transition than any other color. You know, obviously it's all based on watercolor. You know, if you have a storm come in and your water's all murked up and cloudy and muddy, go with a margarita mutilator, you know, a purple, a brown, something like that, more contrasty. But if you're getting that clear water or you have real clear water, try a morning dawn, either a robo worm or whatever your favorite plastic is. This is actually a 6-inch robo worm, 9 pounders. Eat this thing because it's right in their face, it's an easy meal, and they wouldn't commit to the big baits. So there it is, guys, long-winded. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if it's 20 or felt like 30 minutes or so, but these are the baits that I throw this time of the year, no matter where I'm going. You know, finesse fishing, you can switch it out to a jig, you know, fish your confidence baits, but don't forget about the big baits, because they will show you where those big fish live. They will show you the caliber of the fish that are in your fishery and adjust from there. Either downsize your swim baits or upsize your swim baits, but either way, make sure you have the right mindset, the right timing and location, and everything else just falls into play. If you guys take these baits, again, I'll link everything down below in the video description. If you take these baits and apply them to those 3 things I just talked about, you guys will see and catch some of the biggest fish you've ever seen and that live in your body of water. If you guys like this video, please give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to our channel. We do 3 videos a week for you, teaching you guys how to catch more and bigger bass. Thanks for hanging in there with me today. I know this is a long video, it feels long, but you know, all these videos leading up to today's video and through the springtime, we've kind of shown you how to fish the different techniques. We've shown you where these fish are going. Now we're showing you what baits to throw, and it's all in succession to put the puzzle pieces together to help you guys figure out and have success on the lake. It starts with confidence. If you guys, you know, we have confidence in all these baits. That's why we're recommending them to you. You know, feed off of our confidence. Try these baits, adjust to your fisheries as will, but start with this and you guys will see success and build on that confidence. As always, guys, we appreciate you. Have a good one.